So let's move on to the next topic as it relates to the team that gave up next year's first-round pick to move up in the draft to get a quarterback that, again, assuming the Bears are a functional team, sends the signal that they're going to have at least a couple of years of Matt Nagy as the coach and Ryan Pace as the GM, while they give Justin Fields a chance to get ensconced. That may not be the case. There was a report yesterday from a Pulitzer Prize-winning longtime Chicago reporter named Mark Conkle, who doesn't cover the Bears. But once I saw this guy won a Pulitzer at the Chicago Sun-Times, I was ready to say,
you perked up.
It's worth
right.
sharing with our audience. And it had caught fire, and the Bears did nothing to turn a hose to it for like 3 hours. So the report was there that Matt Nagy has already been told, was told Monday, that he will be fired after the Thanksgiving game in Detroit. The Bears said nothing by way of a statement. What they did, they made Nagy available, 1 o'clock Eastern yesterday. Here's what he had to say in response to the report.
Matt, there's a report today that you had been informed that this would be your last game as president.
That is not accurate. I have not, I have great communication with ownership, with George and Ted and Ryan, but I have not had any discussions.
What have been your discussions with George and Ted and Ryan this week?
Just for this week, we have not talked this week, and that was scheduled. That's been we have a good schedule over the years where we have discussions. Like you guys always hear us talk about. We have constant communication. I always think it's good and healthy, and so we stayed on course. And with the bye week, and then with the short turnaround with game prep, we have not.
He did a nice job overall, fairly short press conference of dealing with the uncertainty. He made it clear he's focused on getting his team ready. He doesn't want to let his team get distracted by this talk. He wasn't even mad about the report. Flashed no anger. There was no Mike Tomlin, mic drop, walk-off moment. He was just, I get it. I understand people have a job to do. But I will say this. When he says there's no discussions to have. If you've just been told you're out, it's over. You're done. What discussions are there? You're fired. Okay, end of discussion. The other thing too, and this is what's making me a little bit wary and a little bit like I'm not ready to say this is a non-issue. Why wasn't there a statement from George McCaskey or Ted Phillips or Ryan Pace in the 3 hours between, and it was probably more than 3 hours by the time that, the report actually landed to the moment that Nagy went to the podium. It may have been 4 hours. Why is there silence from the organization? Like, if anybody's going to lie, let's have the guy lie who isn't going to be here. The people who are still going to be here, let's not put them in a position where they have to lie about this. So, and oh, man, you're too cynical. Oh, man, you think everybody. Well, yeah, because we've seen it time and again.
Sure.
Part of my job here is to be that crap filter to help the audience understand that the things that we are told, the things that are said, quite often aren't the things that are actually happening. So nothing was said by the people who supposedly said you're out. It was just Matt Nagy, the one he's already gone. I mean, if the report's true, he's already gone. So let's let him be the one who has to go say the report isn't true. There have been no discussions. Well, maybe there don't need to be discussions. Maybe he got an email. I don't know. Maybe it wasn't Ted Phillips or George McCaskey who told him. Maybe somebody else delivered the message. Who knows? Again, dysfunctional teams do dysfunctional things.
Yeah, I hear you.
So I'm not ready. I'm not ready to say, let's ignore the Pulitzer winner. He was barking up the wrong tree. He's making something up. Or he's just misinformed. I'm not ready to say that based on what happened yesterday.
No, I don't. I mean, again, if you ask me, just sitting here connecting dots, I would think maybe that he heard from somebody reliable that, this could be coming. I have a hard time believing that he's been told hey, you're going to be fired, but grind it out for the toughest 4 days of the year right here. I mean, listen, I think if you and me, they told me you're going to get fired, I'd go, hey, F you, I'll see you later. Happy Thanksgiving, I'm out of here. I mean, that's where I have a hard time believing that he
do
was.
You get your buyout if you do that, though? I don't know what he's got left on his contract.
I think
you probably got to keep paddling the boat until the point they take the paddle out of your hands, or you may give up your buyout.
Well, maybe, but my point is, like, I've never really I don't think that's happened any time in recent history. I mean, maybe a long time ago, But I have a hard time thinking of a circumstance any time here in the last 15 to 20 years where in the NFL a head coach was told, midway, a little past the midway point of the season, you're going to be fired after this next game. That to me, I don't believe that. Now, do I think maybe some of those conversations are going on behind the scenes in Chicago? Yes, probably. Yeah, they're probably having some of the same conversations we just talked about with the New York Giants and Jason Garrett and everything there. There's a lot of similarities. What's the identity of the offense? Yeah, there's some issues, but there's no light at the end of the tunnel. Where's the creativity? We know the offense isn't perfect as far as the players on the field, but give us something, give us some hope there. And that's where I think Matt Nagy is, not delivered to the Bears fan base or anybody that watches football from that standpoint. So I don't know. I mean, I guess in my heart of hearts, I would think, yes, the Bears, brass is having these kind of conversations. I don't think that they told him on Monday, this will be your last game, and go grind it out. I have a hard time getting behind that. So I guess that's my 2 cents on that.
Dan Reeves apparently had that happen. 3 games left in the 2003 season
good
with
job.
the Atlanta Falcons. That's Pete's information.
It's rare,
is
what I'm saying. It's very rare.
Only coach since 2000 fired after a win mid-season. Because I was wondering what happens if the Bears win this game. It's going to be weird to get the coach fired in the immediate aftermath. Last year it was Matt Patricia out the door after the Thanksgiving loss by the Lions. It just would be weird to see the coach who wins the game go. But, the report was, and it was not equivocal. It was he's been informed that this is it. So, and just because a guy has won a Pulitzer doesn't give him, a lifetime pass. Everybody makes mistakes at one time or another, but I don't think he goes with this.
No, I agree. I understand what you're saying.
If he doesn't believe his source,
Right,
and if it's not now, here's the other side of it too. The fact that it got out. Sometimes when something gets out, the thing that was going to happen doesn't happen. And maybe it was going to happen, but now that it's out in the open and they had to deal with it yesterday, they've decided now we probably shouldn't do this. But we'll see. We'll see. There's only one way to find out. Play the game tomorrow, see what happens afterward.
Yeah.
Is Nagy in? Is Nagy out? Does he continue? Is he fired?
Well,
and there's definitely a groundswell in Chicago.
No doubt.
For this to happen. When they're chanting it at the Bulls game.
Yeah.
Then this is something
It's real.
That the Bears need to take seriously, because at some point your fans are going to revolt, and they're the ones you're counting on to follow and support your team. And you're never going to fire the owner, so sometimes you got to fire all the other people, and it starts with the coach. But I will say this, because I made this point 2 years ago. If they're going to start firing people, it's time to fire Ted Phillips, the president of the team.
Right.
These organizations, most of them, have someone who's in a job that allows credit to be taken.
Yeah.
When things go well.
Right.
And when things go poorly, they go huddle up with the owner and say, well, who are we going to fire? Who are we going to hire?
Right.
And that person's never in a position where they're accountable. And I could start naming names. You could go through the list of teams, and for a lot of them, there's that person. And for some of them, it's not obvious. They do a good job keeping their head low and their mouth shut, so they're never on the firing line.
Sure.
But most teams have that person who lasts through multiple regimes and hires the regimes. I mean, hey, Ted Phillips hired Phil Emery. Ted Phillips hired Mark Trestman.
Sure.
There have not been good hires made by the Chicago Bears. At some point, somebody's got to wake up above Ted Phillips and say, maybe he's got to go.
Yeah, I hear you.
Maybe he's part of the problem.
Maybe, yes.
And maybe the time has come for that conversation to be had.
Yeah, Pete's in my ear going, he's been the president since 1999. I mean, you made the point. Yeah, I mean, it's hasn't been a ton of success for a franchise that has a lot of the pieces to be successful as far as a great fan base and, a organization that has history. Yeah, when it happens like those type of things, what you're explaining with Ted Phillips, it seems like, the ultimate teacher's pet type of conversation there. And that goes on in the NFL. It certainly does. Where, we could probably sit here and list off 8-10 people where we'd go, I don't know how the hell that guy keeps his job, but damn, does somebody in that organization trust him, or he's sold them on something, or he's got, he's got bad pictures on the owner or something. I mean, that's really what it seems like at times. But I think like what you said to me, Mike, is the real thing. There's a real groundswell in Chicago. You can feel it. It's a little different than what we've heard over the last 3 years or the last, let's say, year and a half when people have really criticized Nagy. It does seem a little bit more tangible right now. There is definitely, real issues. I think the fan base looks at it and goes, man, there's no hope. We got Justin Fields. He's talented. Doesn't even seem like we can use him the right way. Those are positive things. I don't think people even want to see what the future could be like with Nagy and Justin Fields. And the other thing I'll say, too, is, you brought up last year with Detroit. To me, this is one thing, I definitely would not be shocked if we saw the Bears fire Matt Nagy this weekend at some point. If they lose to the Detroit Lions, I would think he's going to get fired. Just like what happened to Patricia last year. They got dominated by a not good Texans team. And I think that's when they went, whoa, Thanksgiving, marquee game, that's the effort we put out. The Texans aren't even good. And Deshaun Watson and company just came in here and marched all over us. And he had like one of the best days of the year. And I think if that happened to Chicago here, vice versa, where it's the 0-9-1 Lions, and they pull off an upset and win the football game and it doesn't look good in Chicago, I would be very nervous about Matt Nagy getting on the plane after the game for sure.
Ted Phillips started working with the Bears in 1983 as the team's controller. He became director of finance 4 years later. I mean, the guy's been there for almost 40 years. And I was talking to somebody in Chicago yesterday. I mean, basically what happened was when the salary cap came along in the early 90s, he figured it out. He was the first one in the organization to figure it out.
That's what he's famous
Managed
for.
the cap.
Yeah.
Makes the Bears a lot of money. Endeared himself to Virginia McCaskey.
Right.
I mean, there are certain employees of football organizations that transcend wins and losses, even though they have an impact on wins and losses. And it takes a lot for that person to be on the line. And I think a couple of years ago, when the seats were heating up, Phillips kind of got dragged into it, and I think it's fair and it's appropriate to make that person responsible. 3 playoff wins in 22 years under his regime as the president of the organization. Now, hey, they've probably made a ton of money. See, that's where reality splits. We want to win the Super Bowl every year. Well, we know we're not going to. How much money did we make? Yes.
Yeah,
keep the president employed. Well done. Here's your bonus check. Let's keep going. And all we have to do is say we want to win the Super Bowl every year, and that stadium's going to be full because the fans are going to believe that we're actually trying to win the Super Bowl when we're just, trying to make as much money as we can because we're a for-profit enterprise. I'm sorry, folks. I know it makes fans mad because they want to suspend disbelief that there's a purity to it. There isn't. There isn't. These are businesses that are trying to make as much money as possible. And, yeah, along the way, somebody's going to win the Super Bowl. And some of the organizations really do want to win the Super Bowl. Most of them, they'd like to, but they're not going to define success based upon whether or not they win the Super Bowl because they know they're going to be pissed off far more often than they're happy if that's how they determine success. They determine success with the great Mamu.
No doubt.
Speaking of that great Mamu, let's take a break, and so we can make a little of the great Mamu.
Hi, I'm Mike Tirico, and thanks for watching. Make sure to hit subscribe for the latest news and highlights from NBC Sports.